Obviously, the presidential election will affect us for the next 4 years and beyond. But the president is bound by Congress, and those elections matter too.
The media tends to ignore the state and local elections and focus all on the presidential election. But the state and local elections matter just as much, if not arguably more. Local officials have the most direct influence on our everyday lives. Local elections can affect things such as taxes,
schools,
public housing,
and infrastructure.
Each state, and then each township, village, they have their own characteristic needs and wants and beliefs. So state politics and the laws which are created and such are really of the utmost importance.
I would encourage all young people to get involved in civil action very early in their life, because it is their future and the future of their children that is at stake.
We have to make use of a right which people around the world don't have, the good fortune to live in the democratic society that we live in. We have to make use of that.
Let's jump into congressional elections. The president, whoever it ends up being, is bound by Congress.
Now, the last 2 years, Democratic President Barack Obama hasn't quite gotten along with the Republican Congress, and as a result, fewer laws were passed. First, Illinois is electing a new senator. Mark Kirk, the incumbent Republican, is being challenged by Democrat Tammy Duckworth, a current Illinois House representative.
There are also nominees for the United States House of Representatives. District 7, which contains almost all of Oak Park and River Forest, is a race between the Democratic incumbent Danny K. Davis and Republican Jeffrey Leaf.
As the rest of River Forest, has Luis V. Gutierrez running unopposed, meaning that he is the only nominee. So, Veronica, why do parties not nominate anyone to run against the incumbent?
I couldn't tell you.
But you know who can?
This past March, I went in to vote in the primary, of which I was not even in the race at that point. I did pull a Republican ballot. I wanted to vote for John Kasich, so much for that. But nevertheless, when I got the ballot, there were countless seats which were running unopposed, and I was just thinking, this is really crazy. 3 things which are able to really solidify their power. One is despite demand from the voters, there are no term limits. So you could stay in office forever and ever. Secondly, there's something which is called gerrymandering, where, and look at the maps, they're drawn in such a way to accumulate the most voters who tend to vote one particular way. And by doing so, that's why in the 4th and in the 7th districts, those typically run unopposed, because candidates know that statistically there's almost no way to win. The third way which also happened with me, is that once somebody does enter the race, your nomination or your petitions can be challenged by the other party. There just are a lot of obstacles where people just do not want that type of the angst and the anger that's generated and the dishonesty when you set out with all good intentions and your motivations are good, but it's defeating. The generation that you guys are in, you're inundated constantly by information through the internet, through Facebook, through this and that, which may or may not be accurate, but is designed to rouse emotions. On the one hand, that's good. It's great to be passionate about a cause. But the number one thing that I would say, is read and learn. Try to read up and learn as much material as you can on any particular subject that you're passionate about.
There are also important elections happening regarding the Illinois government in Springfield.
Oak Park and River Forest voters don't actually have to decide on anyone in the state Senate elections this year. Although District 4 has a nominee, Kimberly Lightford, she was running unopposed. The other district in Oak Park and River Forest, District 39, doesn't have an election until 2018. All of the state congressional elections are also incumbents running unopposed.
This year, you can also vote on the Safe Roads Amendment.
The Safe Roads Amendment would take all of the funding given to the Illinois government for the purposes of transportation and infrastructure and put it in a lockbox so that it could only be used for that purpose, rather than being used as a financial reserve for any other monetary needs that the Illinois government might have.
There is also a District 200 referendum that would fund a swimming pool.
To find out all about that, you can check out the previous episode of Newscene from October 14th. Lastly, there is one more referendum on the ballot for voters in Oak Park. This type of referendum is different from normal referendums. It's called an advisory referendum.
And now to Professor Uslangi himself, who started this campaign.
Hello, my name is George Uslangi. I am an old-time resident of Oak Park, where I moved in 1971, 45 years ago. The referendum is an advisory referendum, a non-binding referendum, obviously, because it simply asks for a public opinion as to whether the use of firearms should be somehow restricted. I am not in favor of abolishing firearms, but I definitely believe that stronger restrictions should be in place. I have never been involved in politics until this time, but I felt I had to say something or my conscience would not have let me alone. It will not change the situation overnight, but my hope would be that it would spread, this movement would spread a little bit. For example, if the referendum passes in Oak Park Township, then there would be a possibility maybe at the next election to sensitize people in the inner city, politicians, ministers in churches, educators, to have it on the ballot in Cook County at the next election, again as a non-binding advisory referendum. And I would hope that this process will snowball eventually. As I pointed out in the opinion I wrote in the Wednesday Journal, sequoia tree is an immense tree, but it starts from the smallest of seeds. It takes a long time to build up a tree like that. So I have no illusion that the Second Amendment will be repealed overnight. But we have to start the process sometime, because we have to come to the realization that either our representative in Congress face up to their responsibilities, or the people will have to take things in their own hands and force them to abolish the Second Amendment and then to enact sensible legislation.
Accept your role as citizen and realize that it is your duty to vote.
That's how democracy works, folks.
Don't make an uneducated vote.
We've given you what you need to get started, the facts, and what the ballot will look like. Now get on the Google and do your own research.
Happy voting!
See you at the polls.